I cast Fireball.
A few weeks ago on the tasting room, we tasted Fireball whiskey.
Notice we have a larger container now.
Yeah, we tried it in a little bottle.
Coincidence? I think not.
And I liked it enough that we said, Fireball Mead sounds like a thing. So we decided to work on it. Now, I looked up Fireball Meads online, and a lot of people were just fortifying a mead with Fireball, which there's nothing wrong with that. I can appreciate it. It would probably be really, really good.
But we want more.
Exactly. We're just not those kind of people. We needed to be over the top, make it our own, that kind of thing. So you know what we're starting with?
An
apple. Why? Malic acid, actually. And some tannins. So the way I do apples is this. I'm going to cut it in half, then cut it into quarters, and then I'm going to cut that core out with the seeds because, nobody wants the seeds. They get in your teeth and, it's just nasty. And then I cut each of those in half. So I have eighths. Pretty simple. Keeping the peel on. This is a Fuji apple, and I'm only saying that because someone's going to ask, but I don't feel that the actual type of apple is going to make much difference here. The apple's not really there for flavor as much as a little bit of nutrient and tannins, really. And that malic acid. I think I want that extra hit of acid for this one. All right, let me get rid of this. Next up, wouldn't be mead without honey.
I put this over there so you could put it in.
Oh, okay, we can do that. We're using a 5-liter fermenter, by the way, because I just like to, we've noticed it's best to have some extra headspace in primary. That way things don't overflow and get all over the place.
Today's honey is
Golden Harvest honey provided by North Mountain Supply. This is like a mix, so I'm calling it a wildflower. And because Fireball wouldn't be Fireball without it having some oomph behind it, even though the original Fireball whiskey is only 66 proof, I'm going to go with 3 pounds of honey. So 3 pounds, in we go. It was at this point that I regretted putting the apples in first. Though agitation, they'll work for that. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. I'm going with that. So, because I know somebody's going to ask, how can I make more alcohol in this? Well, you don't want to. That's the simple answer. You don't want to. Because the more honey you add at this phase, the more pressure and stress you are putting on the yeast. And I don't care if your yeast says it can go to 18% in a day and a half. It's not likely to actually happen that way. Just trust me on this. We do 3 pounds. That'll make something in the 13 to 15% range. It's totally fine. And it's going to taste good young. That's the trick. If you want to age stuff for 5 years before you can drink it, then you can work on trying to make super high ABV. But then you got to worry about nutrient schedules and staggered nutritions and other stuff that we're just not going to deal with today. Keeping it simple.
all right. You want some water in there so you can stir that up?
We can do that.
Okay.
So we're just going to fill this about halfway and keep track of how much water we add. Stop. It had about 112 ounces in there before. It's down to about 60 or so now. So that means 52 ounces or so far. Okay. Because I don't want to fill this because then it defeats the whole purpose, right? Anyway, I want to mix this. And for that, I'm going to use the spattle. It's a spoon, it's a paddle, it's both. Get yours in the description below. Also from North Mountain Supply, coincidentally. We put links to things that we use on the show in the description. A lot of people have been asking, where do I get this? Where do I get that? That's where we got them from. We buy from Amazon on purpose so that we can test out stuff that if it works for us, we can recommend it to you. If we only bought things at a local homebrew shop, then we couldn't really do that. But a lot of the stuff is available in your local homebrew shop too. So if you don't want to buy it from Amazon, or if you have a local homebrew shop that you really like, get it from there. If you do get it from Amazon though, please use our links because it does help the channel out. We get a little tiny commission from it and it doesn't cost you anything extra. And now the bills are paid, we can move on to brew. So I want to mix this up and I can be a little sloppy with it because adding oxygen at this stage is good. Yeast like that.
Yes. At the beginning of your must creation, oxygen is good because once you put yeast in there, they're going to use that oxygen to be fruitful and multiply And once they build up their colony, they're going to go ahead and get busy to converting those fermentable sugars into alcohol. Once they start that process, oxygen, bad. Because oxygen plus alcohol plus acetobacters, which are omnipresent, can lead to vinegar. And we don't want to make vinegar, we want to make alcohol.
When you say omnipresent, it's kind of like yeast. Acetobacters and yeast are pretty much in every fruit and vegetable and living thing.
Everywhere.
So yeah, you don't want to activate them. Okay, so we have it mixed and it's like half full. Fireball wouldn't be Fireball without something very important. Now, I have here a whole bunch of cinnamon sticks. You're probably expecting me to put them all in there, aren't you? Well, guess what? I'm just gonna put one. Why?
Because I told him not to put any at this time. And he said, well, we're going to compromise and put one. And
That's
I
right.
said, okay.
So what I want to do now is put the rest of the water in that we're going to use. But before we do that, I want to make sure we use 96 ounces of water. So if we had 112 to start with, we need to leave 16 ounces in that pitcher. Long way to go.
Ta-da!
Wow, spot on, perfect. Okay, now I want to mix that through as well.
Do you take a gravity reading at this stage? I know you have
Yeah,
more
it's probably a good
stuff
idea.
in
There's more
there.
stuff going in, but a gravity reading right now, probably not a bad idea. I'm expecting somewhere around a 1.100 or so. That's why I want to be more careful with the water. If we don't put all the water in now, I can adjust it down a little bit if it's a little too high. Okay, so this is why you measure really, really well. 3 pounds of honey, because it's 0.035 specific gravity per pound, plus the water, which is 1.000, should be 1.105 in an exact gallon of must. We have a 1.104 specific gravity right now, which means we're like right there. Just, I love it when a plan comes together. So that's perfect. I don't want to dilute it. I don't want to move it. I think that's exactly where I want it. I'm good. I'm happy.
Fantastic. Now, before we pitch our yeast, we want to add more flavor.
Okay, and that more flavor is going to come in the form of ginger. Now, ginger adds a nice like hotness to it. Hotness, that's right. And you might notice that our ginger looks frozen. It's because we keep
frozen.
it in the freezer. Now, we used to buy ginger to use for culinary purposes and for brewing. And, you know, whatever you don't use is just sitting there. And then like 3 months later, you go, oh God, it's moldy now.
Oh, mold.
But if you put it in the freezer, you can just pull it out, use however much you need, and then put it back in the freezer. It's the most genius thing that I've ever seen.
And because normally when we're using ginger, we're going to grate it anyway. It doesn't matter that it's frozen.
Yep.
It's easier to grate that way.
Now, I know what somebody's thinking. Couldn't you just slice this or juice this? Yeah, you can if you really want to. I find that grating it is just as easy. It's going to make a little bit of a mess in this particular brew, but I'd rather get the full extraction that I'm going to get from this. So that way, I like to grate it, and it works either way. It doesn't really matter.
So roughly how much are you adding?
I'm not sure yet. Probably about 2 teaspoons of grated ginger. Now, somebody's going to ask, can I use candy ginger? Sure. I just couldn't tell you how much to use because that's going to vary.
Yeah.
And you're going to be adding sweetness and things too. So it's going to,
more fermentable sugar to it
right,
as well.
it's going to change a little bit. I don't think it's going to add that much, but you will be changing the recipe slightly. Just remember, you can do almost anything you want. Just everything comes with a caveat. You know, you can add or change things. Just know that some things are here for a reason. Other things are here just because I felt like it. If it's here just because I felt like it, then you can change it. So far, smelling pretty darn good. But so far, all it is a standard mead with a little bit of ginger, apple, and cinnamon, which is already going to be good. We ain't done yet. But for today, we are going to be using Lalvin 71B,
aka the Beast.
for our yeast. And I'm just going to add half of a packet. Somebody recently said that they're very upset that I don't do the terrible packet joke anymore. And the reason why I don't do it is because it's just not that funny. And because here's the thing. I did this joke, if you don't know, about like foil packets that you have to cut. It's kind of a pain, so I called them terrible packets. This is actually a terrible packet because I can tear it open. It's just a play on words. But really, the foil packets are kind of better because they secure the package better. I don't know. So that's why I kind of stopped doing it because it wasn't really worth the trouble trying to explain it every time. But anyway, this is 71B. I'm just going to use about half. I'm eyeballing it. Can you use a whole packet if you want to? Yep.
Sure.
There's no real reason to. We used to do it that way. And sure, things started up a little bit faster, but we've also found that a really vigorous fermentation is not always a good thing because it blows out, aromas and things like that you can't ever get back. So we, go a little bit weaker. Slow and steady wins the race, That saying, it holds true for a lot of things.
It does. Now, for perhaps the most controversial aspect of this video. Please sit down before we continue.
We're not going to use an airlock. So this 5-liter fermenter is beautiful. I love it. It's Italian craftsmanship and everything like that, but it doesn't come with a lid suitable for an airlock. Instead, it actually comes with cheesecloth and a rubber band.
So I have sanitized this cheesecloth and I wrung it out manually so that I wasn't going to drip sanitizer liquid into my vessel.
Oh, speaking of which, everything that's touching this brew has been sanitized in
the red bucket of sanitization.
Literally just a bucket off to the side. It's like 15 gallons and we have in it mixed star sand and water to the manufacturer's suggestions. And I'm just going to put this rubber band over it. It doesn't even have to be super tight. It just needs to hold it in place.
Now, because this is designed for this kind of application, there is a divot, a ridge, if you will, that the rubber band sits into. So that way there is a barrier on the bottom and a barrier on the top. So no creepy crawlies can get up in there.
Now, before anybody freaks out, the whole purpose of an airlock at all is really just to keep bugs out and let the gases escape. Well, the cheesecloth is going to keep the bugs out. It's like 4 layers of it because it's folded several times. Yeah, that is 4 layers of cheesecloth. So air and gases can totally get out, no problem, but bugs aren't going to get in there. Someone actually had a concern about cheesecloth where they were afraid that flies could lay eggs on the cheesecloth and fall through. I'm going to doubt they would actually do that, but even if they tried, I don't think it would fall through 4 layers of cheesecloth, so it's not likely. And
also,
the alcohol would kill them.
This has been sanitized, so it is soaked in sanitizer liquid. I don't think the sanitizer liquid is going to be...
It's not a good environment for
something
eggs.
Attractive to a bug.
Never mind the fact that I don't think the bugs would actually lay their eggs on this anyway. Now, fruit flies in particular are attracted to fermentation because the smells of fermentation attract them. But I believe they want it as food. I could be wrong.
They're going to be like, let me in there, let me in there.
Yeah, they're not going to say, let me leave my kids sitting out here in the hopes that they get, I don't know. I don't know. I'm guessing, but it just sounded kind of funny.
We have fermented this method before and nothing bad happens.
Yeah,
so that's why we're going to continue forth now.
And this is a perfectly good alternative to using an airlock. The downside is this. You won't get the bloop, bloop, bloop. And as it starts to go faster, you won't get the bloop, 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 bloop. And then when it slows down, you won't get the bloop, bloop, bloop. But what you will get, because this is clear glass, you can look at the sides and you will see little bubbles coming up the side. So that's still an indication that fermentation is happening or that it's slowing down. So yeah, I'd rather have the airlock, I'll be totally honest. But you know what? I love this fermenter, the way it looks enough that I'll use it once in a while. And this just seemed like the perfect application for it. Because notice how much space there is. It's highly unlikely to foam over and get up into the cheesecloth there and make a mess.
Now, one thing to mention at this point in time is that if you do decide to give it a swirl, as we have some solids in there with the fruit and the ginger, you want to be very careful because if you're too vigorous, it's going to splash through that cloth.
Right. And you also don't want any of the ginger or the yeast sticking to the sides if you can. I mean, some of it's going to, but you want to try to avoid that if you can.
So because we do have fruit in there, we're probably going to let this sit for at least 2 weeks.
Yeah. Generally speaking, we like fruit to sit for 2 weeks, sometimes 3. But yeah, it won't. This probably will not be ready for 2 to 3 weeks anyway for its first reading. And that's when we'll see you next. It's been like a week.
Now, this has been sitting out where we can watch it and make sure everything is
right there.
copacetic.
Right there.
And it was fermenting really nicely. We had a nice bubble layer. It didn't go too high, so we didn't have to worry about our lid. But it was fermenting really nicely. And it just recently settled down. Oh, boy.
It's already smelling like Fireball.
Oh, boy.
which means you're not going to like it. Although it's kind
I
of...
believe when I did the tasting
more like
of
Spark Ball.
Fireball, I said it's candy in a glass.
Okay, that's true. You did say candy. It's more like Spark Ball right now. It's not really fire.
It's not fire. That's coming later.
Barely has tinder in it yet. It's very cloudy. So I'm thinking it's probably still going.
We do have a rather appleicious
Copious.
sediment layer. And
It's not
apples like to just fall apart. And so they make a big goopy mess.
Yeah, we didn't think it was going to be done yet. But it is at a very, very, very good number, 1.042.
It's super gassy. So we might give it a bit of a swirl.
Yeah. But I'm going to put the sample back in.
Yeah.
So here's the
Do
deal.
you want me to tilt it?
Yeah, this is not finished, okay? It's still fermenting. Don't worry about it. It's okay. We'll put its hat back on. I actually really like this fermenter. The downside, though, is all we have to look at is the physical cues inside the brew itself, which there's nothing wrong with that, and it's good to know how to do that. But that's why we checked it a little bit early, mostly to show that and to see, like, is it really done? It turned a unique color in the last several days.
Now,
It's
you do
turning.
want to be gentle with your swirling because of this type of lid
Yeah, you don't
scenario.
want this wet. I think I'm doing okay.
Yeah, but we do want to get some of that gas out. Because remember, the gas and the alcohol are both the waste products of the yeast. And nobody likes swimming around in their own waste, do you? I certainly don't.
I've never actually done it, so I don't know. But I don't think I would like it.
So getting some of that gas out may make this a more pleasurable experience for the yeast, and so they may get back to work and creating more alcohol.
Well, we don't know that they've stopped at all. We just have a cross section. We have like a snapshot. We don't know if they're done or if they're stalled
Sure.
or if they're still going.
We're just giving them some
But there's
added
plenty of little bubbles coming up the side. I think
motivation.
it's still working.
It's good. It's good.
See you another week. Okay, it's been 2 more weeks, which brings us to a little over 3 weeks right now. So we're just going to check on it, see what it's doing. So remove its cover.
Now we're seeing little floaty, stringy thingies in there, and Brian got a little nervous, and then we realized, oh wait, we grated up ginger and put it in there.
So yeah, when you look inside there, you can see little stuff floating in there. And then, you know, when I went down to the side here, right there, looks like stuff that I don't want in there. And I was like, uh-oh, do we have a problem? But no, it was just grated ginger.
It smells fantastic
It really does.
already, which is making me really happy.
Yeah. All right. So let's hope that it fermented a bit more. It's not really clearing, but I don't know. I don't really expect this one to clear for some reason. I don't know.
Just the ingredient combination, it just might be the nature of the beast, and we're okay with that.
Oh, it definitely fermented a lot more. 1.004. So that's significant, which means right now I can already tell you what it's at. 13.125%. Want to know how I knew that? It started at 1.104 to 1.004. That means 100 points times 131.25 gives us 13.125. So it's like 13% ABV right now.
Which is pretty perfect, in my opinion.
Yeah, so here's what we're going to do. Normally I would say don't do anything until it's fully done fermenting, but this time I know we are going to sweeten this. And I know we've been saying this a lot lately, but it's kind of an important thing to understand when to do something and when not to do something. And in this case, it's probably not fully done, but I don't like it sitting on all those bits and apples and things like that. So I'd rather rack it off of there. That does eliminate most of the colony, but it's mostly done fermenting. We're going to add a whole bunch of antibacterial stuff to this.
Now, if we had only fermented to, say, 6%, which is under that 10% ABV range, and the reason why I like to stress the 10% ABV range is because that's when it starts making it more difficult to become vinegar.
Yes.
And so that is the primary infection that we're trying to avoid. We don't want vinegarization.
Right.
So once our brew reaches 10% ABV, that means it has enough alcohol in the liquid to make it more difficult for pseudobacteria, which are omnipresent, which turn alcohol and oxygen into vinegar. That's the trifecta there.
Right.
I know I'm babbling, I'm incoherent. I'm also very caffeinated, so give me a break.
So we're going to rack this. Okay, so as we always do, we're going to rack it. Now, racking simply means moving it from one vessel to another, and usually using some sort of a siphon or tubing or something. We use an auto siphon because it's easy, convenient, and effective. But racking also is usually done to either get it off of sediment, leave behind solids, whatever, that sort of thing, which is what we're doing today. As you recall, this is a 1.3 or 5 liter. It's a 5 liter, 1.3 gallon, aka 5 liter fermenter. So racking it out of this and putting it into a 1 gallon should be just about right because there was a good amount of headspace, and that's the way we like to do things now. Also, this sample needs to go in here. Can you tip that sideways? However, there is a lot of sediment in here and there's a lot of solids. I really just want the gross lees or the bigger parts left out. I'm not all that concerned about the rest because it'll fall out of suspension over time. I do the tip up thing like this because what happens is it puts a little bit more pressure on the actual intake of the siphon, so that way it goes a little bit faster. And at the end, you end up with just a little bit more product because you are doing it at an angle. Here is a perfect example of why I like to use a larger fermenter and go down as you rack. Notice how little headspace there is in there. Now, some people will freak out and say that that's still too much headspace. I'm not some of those people. We've never had an oxidation problem.
We just want it to go past where it starts to get narrower. So we
basically, you want to do the best you can with what you got. Okay, speaking of doing the best you can with what you got, this is cinnamon. This is supposed to be Fireball. We had 1 cinnamon stick in that Fireball so far. So, need at least that. And I'm digging out all the biggest ones. That was just 1. This is 2. 3! I'm going to do 3.
Nope. That one didn't want to go in.
No. Now, people ask all the time, do we sanitize the spices? Nope. You know why? They're pretty much antimicrobial, anti-living things. They don't like to, things don't grow on them, let's just say.
Let's mark your 3 ginormous cinnamon stick edition.
Now, the other thing is, when it comes to extraction rate, because I didn't crush them or break them up, they're going to take a little bit longer to extract, but that's a good thing because you want to test this. Like, we're going to let this sit for probably a week, maybe 2, and then we'll taste it. If I had put them in ground, it'd be like a day and I'd need to test it. Plus there'd be muck and it'd be nasty. So people ask that all the time too. I prefer to use whole spices. It's much easier. I could actually reach in there with sanitized tongs and pull those out if I wanted to, rather than racking the whole thing. But in this case, we'll probably just rack the whole thing when it's ready. So,
do you want to give it a little swirl? I'm seeing some gases.
I can do that. These lids leak really badly, so.
It's working.
Do you see the airlock working? Yep, and it's leaking out. Just a little bit.
All right. We're both satisfied, and he's sticking. He has to go wash his hands.
Yeah. But I have notes. Everything's done. It's going to go back in the fermentation for probably 2 weeks, and we'll see then. Okay, it's been 3 weeks since we added a crap ton of cinnamon sticks into this. I'm slightly concerned, but not concerned at all, because this is Fireball mead. It's supposed to have lots of cinnamon flavor. But the reason why is because we moved, and we've been doing stuff. So it's just been sitting. I mean, you see a difference in the studio, right? But anyway, today what we want to do is take another reading on this, because the last reading was 1.004, and then we added the cinnamon sticks. I don't really think it fermented much more after that, but it might have. We're going to find out right now. Smells cinnamon, but it doesn't smell bad. We also have some ideas as to how we're going to do this. We're not really sure yet, but we have some ideas. We have plans. Our plants have plans. I'm just not sure which plan of plans we're going to do. Made better sense in my head, trust me. 1.004. It didn't change. Now, you might be thinking, oh, but that's stalled. Well, sort of. We used Lalvin 71B, which is good for like 13 to 14%. We started at 1.104. It ended at 1.004. Thereby, it's about 13.1%. That's spot on for what 71B is meant to do. But then we added a ton of antibiotic, antibacterial, whatever, anti-living things stuff in there, the cinnamon sticks. Yeah, they tend to not play well with yeast. We put a lot in there. So, and the reason why I'm saying all the different words is because I don't remember which one it is. Antibiotic, antibacterial, I don't remember.
One of those.
Yeah. Antibiotic means anti-life. So I guess that's the right one. Anyway, so with all that in there, it probably prevented further fermentation. Now, that doesn't mean it's something you can depend on, but when you're that close, it might just stop it. Okay, so technically, it is a stall. but it's a useful stall. So we're going to go with that.
All right,
My story, and I'm sticking to it.
now I'm going to rack from this vessel into this vessel. So since we're standing, you can see the actual difference of our heights. I'm going to use the stool and bring it around here because I don't have a lap to put this on.
Well, you do have a lap. It's not available at the moment. It's in the vertical position.
It's in the upright and locked position.
Your lap is in the upper. Yeah, it is, actually.
It is.
Yeah, this is the temporary setup for a little while until we get the studio completely ready to go. But, it works. Feels weird. Today's the first day really doing Setting Brews stuff in here.
Yeah.
It's weird. So one of the things that's different is we had to put a tablecloth over this portable table. Notice how stable this table is.
It's not.
No. So I have to use a clipboard. This is the first clipboard Derica could find. It's literally interference orange and pink. So
Yeah.
I'm calling it the C-Boy. The clipboard of interference.
He's not a fan.
Nope. That would not be my color of choice if I was given an option.
Well, the other one was a weird green yellow, which I know would be even worse for you.
I don't know if that'd be worse, to be honest. Orange and pink.
Well, you hate the green yellow combo too.
Yeah. Brown, gray, black, white. I'm good. Red. Dark green, actually. I like hunter green.
Yeah, it's all this Dayglow craziness.
So now let me give you a little insight into our thought process here. In order to be Fireball Mead, it needs to be powerful, it needs to have good flavor, and it needs to be a strong flavor. But we also like to change things up a little bit and do things differently. So our thought process was, we're going to taste it as it is, then we're going to sweeten it with some honey because, it's a mead, and then maybe we're going to fortify this instead of just going right to pasteurization. That way we give it an even more powerful taste. And it'll bump it up to, I'm only thinking like 16 or 17% ABV, but that's still kind of powerful. But that will add to the burn of the cinnamon. What do you think? Does it taste cinnamon-y? Smells cinnamon.
I think because of the lack of sweetness up front, it just kind of feels.
It's not bad. It's not bad.
Yeah,
Honestly, needs more cinnamon.
it does mean more cinnamon.
Okay, well, guess what? Plans just changed. We're gonna rack this back into a container and add more cinnamon, but I'm gonna break them up.
Okay, or do you want to fortify it first, bumping the alcohol?
Oh.
So that way it'll extract the cinnamon even more.
I like that idea.
All right.
I like how you think. Okay, so here's the way we do this. I go by the parts system. There's a lot of different ways to do it. There's like a Pearson square that you can use that'll figure this out. I do it a little more simply than that. So right now, what?
I also have another wrench to throw in the works.
What's that?
Do we want to sweeten it as well?
No.
No?
No, we'll sweeten it afterwards because right now I want to just fortify it to help with the extraction of cinnamon, and then we can sweeten to taste at that point.
Okay.
To me, that makes more sense. Because if we sweeten now without the final amount of cinnamon, we might need to sweeten it again.
Fair enough.
So I'd rather just do that later. Okay, so right now it's 13.1%, okay? And we're gonna call it that because I have 112 ounces at 13.1%. If I'm looking to get this to like 16%, because I know that's just past what the tolerance of 71B is, maybe even closer to 17. That way when I dilute it with honey later, we're still above what 71B can do. If all of this is going over your head, let me explain. When you fortify something, you're adding a spirit to it. Like in our case, we're gonna use Everclear. We don't have a lot of it, but we have some. What we're doing is raising the alcohol content of the liquid, thereby hopefully making the yeast say, nope, can't do that.
So in order to do that, we need to know first what yeast we're using, which we know, what its alcohol tolerance is, which we know, what our alcohol is now in our brew, to try to figure out how much more alcohol we need to add it to bring it above the yeast alcohol tolerance.
Right. So I'm working with ounces. I have 112 ounces at 13.1%. I multiply those two together. Now I'm going to add in some of this. Now in Florida, we can only get the 75.5%. I know there's a higher one, but I'm gonna use the 75.5%. So the higher your proof of alcohol, the less you need to add, thereby making less of a diluted product for flavor in the end. So if I was to do like 4 ounces at 75.5, that is 302, right? Because 4 ounces times 75.5 is 302 plus 302. And that gives me a total of 116 ounces. So I divide that by 116, gives me 15.25. So that's not enough, but it did bump me 2% ABV. So maybe 8 ounces is what I need. And I have to do this trial and error. I know there's other ways. My way it's how I do it. It works. We have 8 ounces times 75.5 plus 112 ounces times 13.1 gives us 4,087.2 if you needed to know that. So that is going to be divided by 120, which is our total number of ounces. Okay, that's the crucial thing to know. You add up both sets of ounces and then you divide by that. 8 ounces gets me 17.26%. I'm good with that. That's totally fine. So I just have to measure out 8 ounces of Everclear, add it to our mead, mix it together. We have a Pyrex measuring cup here that obviously was sanitized. Derek asked why to sanitize it, and I said, you know, it's just good practice. It doesn't hurt anything.
But we're pouring Everclear in it.
Yeah,
so.
if Everclear doesn't kill it, nothing will, basically. I just need 8 ounces, which is also known as 1 cup. Didn't even use it all. We have some left. I'm just gonna carefully pour this in. Give it a little mixy mix. That's enough mixy mix.
Now we need to rack this back into a wide mouth 1 gallon pitcher or fermentation vessel and then add more cinnamon.
Okay, so I racked it to a wide mouth 1 gallon and I found some cinnamon. It's not the exact same cinnamon that we found the other day, but it's okay. See if I can break these. That's a yes. I'm just gonna kind of crumble them up. You might be wondering how many. Just have to keep watching.
1.
No, I'm not gonna be able to break this one. I'm gonna get a hammer in a second. Yeah. Okay. 3, 4, 5, 6 altogether. Be right back. All right, so what I have here is a plastic bag filled with those cinnamon pieces. I'm just gonna take like a towel, put it over the top of them, and smash them with a hammer. Hey, it works well. That's it. And now we add the cinnamon back to the brew. The reason I broke it up, in case anyone was wondering, is because when you smash it up, it has more surface area, so it'll extract more quickly. And that's what we want. We want more extraction. This might take a week, it might take 2, it might take 3. We don't really know.
All right, so we have adjusted the alcohol percentage, which is going to aid in speeding up the extraction procedure. There's another variable that we can change if we choose so, and that's the temperature.
Oh.
Currently, our soon-to-be studio is not air-conditioned, so therefore it is significantly warmer than the rest of the house. Would you like to put it there to see if that helps with the cinnamon extraction, or you're not willing to risk that?
Let me go check the temperature of that room before I say. All right, so now we're in the garage, AKA the almost studio, and I'm just gonna take a measurement of like the wall. 94.1, 93.7 degrees. 90, yeah, we'll do it. Yeah, it's a little warm out there. We're both kind of glistening. That's why we don't film out there yet. But this is kind of a calculated risk scenario. Yes, warmer temperature is going to make it extract faster, but the warmer temperature might affect flavors. I doubt it, okay? In this exact instance, I doubt it, because it's not fermenting anymore. The fermentation process, when you go too hot, can cause strange esters and things like that, depending on the yeast used. Because fermentation's done, I don't think it's going to alter it by anything significant or anything like that. Plus, we're making Fireball mead here. I mean, come on, it's not exactly like the cream of the crop culture kind of thing, you know? So we're gonna put this in the garage for, let's say, a week, and then we'll be back to see how it is. Okay, so this has been sitting in our garage for 1 week. In our garage, it gets to about 90 degrees, okay? I don't normally recommend doing that.
90,000.
But I think we might have invented a new way to clear mead. I call it hot crashing.
This is stupid clear. I was just talking with Brian. Look at all that stuff that fell out. It's like a big fluffy cloud at the bottom. And then the color, the intensity of that orangey red and the clearness. Can you see my fingers? Yeah, that's just,
I don't have words.
I don't know.
That's not typical. That's all I can say. It smells like cinnamon now. Yeah.
Sorry, it sticks there.
It'll get you. I love the color. That is pure cinnamon coloring it.
Yeah.
That's all that made that color. That's kind of awesome. Ooh, it smells like cinnamon. Now, it's still really dry, but it's also been fortified. So this is, what did we say, like 17%? Yeah.
I think so. The Everclear.
I never wrote it down, but we're going to call it 17%.
If it tastes like this, like it smells, yeah.
I think we nailed it. That's got some cinnamon.
Oh, I definitely need some sweetness.
Yeah.
Oh.
Here, have some more.
Okay.
Okay. What we want to do now is rack it off of the. Yeah, it's hard to drink right now.
I'm taking one for the team. This is for you all.
If you watch the tasting room, I've taken a lot for the team lately. That's why she gets this one. You okay?
Yeah.
It's that good, huh?
It just kind of like
Yeah.
sticks in your throat. It's like a.
Well, 17%, high cinnamon, and no sugar. So what we want to do is rack this, and I think we should do it through a tea strainer because there's a lot of little bits and pieces. And then we're going to do some final adjustments. Be right back.
I gotta find the rumble jar.
All right, so we're going to rack this, but we're going to do it a little differently.
We're using the rumble jar
Why are we doing that?
because of particulates.
There's a crap ton of particulates in here that I don't want in my final mead. I don't like having to spit things out when I'm drinking.
Probably can't tell from there because the perforations are so minute, but this is perforated minutely all over the place, which is going to keep those particulates out.
It's actually designed for making cold brew coffee, but it works really, really well for this. And all you do is it was sanitized.
It was sanitized.
And she just lowers it in carefully. And then I can take the cap right off because nothing's getting through really. And I can drop this all the way down inside and we rack. I can take it from here.
Get that. All right.
Now, before anybody thinks that this is going to remove lees, not really. It's for particulates that are larger than the holes.
And that's a common misconception. People think that if you rack something through a fine enough mesh that you'll get rid of all the yeast. Yeast are microscopic.
You can, but it has to be an incredibly fine mesh.
Yeah.
We've played with like the 1 micron filters and stuff, and it didn't work. It really, really didn't. There are ways to do it. It's just not something that we care to get into. People ask all the time about the professional filters and stuff like that. And yeah, they're fun to play with, I guess. Not something that we care about that much. Trying to stay away from all the fluffy stuff at the bottom here. But I want to get as much product as possible too. Okay, so we racked it and we have this really dry Fireball. Now we need to sweeten it with some honey. And for that, we're going to use the Golden Harvest one.
Because that's what we used initially, and we like to stick with it unless we want to change a flavor.
Exactly.
In this, we just want the sweetness of the honey. So we're sticking with the original honey.
So we could use anything, but like she said, why not stick with the one you started with? Complements its own flavors. And the way we sweeten is always like this. I will add an amount and then mix it through and give it a taste. And at the end, we can tell you what it ended at, but that way it doesn't matter what volume you have. We can give you a specific gravity reading to tell you the sweetness level that we got this to. Now, since I know that Fireball whiskey is very sweet, I'm expecting to need this to be very sweet too. So you might have seen it as an extra long pour today. For now, I need to mix this up. And for that, I need an instrument of mixation, also known as the spattle. The spattle. It's, whoops. The spattle. It's a spoon. It's a paddle. It's both. Get yours in the description below. I actually dropped it. I don't know if that showed up. I don't know if I edited that out or not. Hey, you know, we're a real show here, folks. In the words of the great Emerald Lagasse, we're not just flopping turkeys. I never understood what that even meant on his show, but he also kept a knob in his pocket. Use your knob.
Use your knob.
Yeah, he used to take the knob off of his stove and use the knob. Because people have a tendency, and I know a lot of people that do this, that when they put something on the stove, they just turn it to high automatically. Then they wonder why they burn things. If you're one of those people, use your knob. That's why it's not an on-off switch. Makes sense when you think about it. The real trick to our way of sweetening, though, is to mix it through thoroughly, because that way you get a true representation of what it would taste like. Now, some people have said, what if you just do this on a small scale? Pour a little bit into a glass and then add some and add some and add some. If you can get very, very, very accurate measurements, you can then transfer that to the larger batch, but it's so much easier to just do it in the larger batch. But it's crucial to not overdo the sweetness level when you do this, because you can always add more, but you can't remove it once it's in. And for those of you that are afraid of oxidation, there's still some gas in here. It's not oxidizing. I mean, the small chance of it, sure, if you're that worried, find a different way to mix this in. But we've been doing it this way for years, never had an oxidation problem. And we actually did a talk on the podcast, the Fermentation, about oxidation. So if you're curious, go check that out. We're mixed. Time to taste.
But are we sweet enough? That is the question.
You are definitely sweet enough. The clarity did get a little ruined because I did get a little bit of lees in there, and we just added honey, which tends to cloud things up. It'll probably clear out again, though. Nailed it. It needs something. You know what it needs? Acid blend.
Okay.
It needs there's a specific kick that comes from the Fireball, and it's definitely an acid kick. Now, someone asked if we could do a video describing the different flavors and what they are like. Like they want to know when something tastes too acidic or something tastes too sweet. I don't know how to describe sweet other than it's sweet. I don't know how to describe acidic other than it's acidic. So that's a difficult thing to do. But I can tell you right now that acidity in food as well as in drinks makes it taste brighter or sharper. Not spicy, but like a sharper flavor.
I think a good way at home, if you're trying to train your palate and learn different things, if you have a base of, say,
Half teaspoon, by the way.
a fruit juice, and then you have some lemon juice, you have some honey, you have some sugar, and you have some black tea, and you add
a great idea.
those into your base fruit juice and taste it and taste the differences. I think that might help teach your palate and your brain to connect those two things together.
That's a good idea. I hadn't considered that.
And the reason why I put honey and sugar in there, that should help you learn the difference between just adding a plain sweetness note, which would be the sugar, or adding the complexity of a honey note, which is the honey.
Because honey is actually slightly acidic.
Yep.
It has a floral note,
Yep.
and it's sweet. So it's kind of a lot of things in one.
Yep.
Okay, I think that's mixed up enough. And we'll see. That was a half teaspoon of acid blend, which is malic, tartaric, and citric acid. Let's see if that did it.
Would you want to do something like what I just described?
I think we could.
Beyond the Brews, maybe?
We could do it on Beyond the Brews. We could do it on the tasting room because it's about taste.
That's true.
That helped significantly.
Yeah.
What do you think? It's got tannins, no doubt. Very sticks in your mouth.
The only thing that I can feel like this is not beating me over the head with the cinnamon flavor. It's definitely cinnamon. I think it has a lovely flavor profile. And since we're making a mead, it shouldn't taste exactly like Fireball, right?
No, it's not. It's never going to. The harshness of the alcohol in Fireball makes that product taste the way it does.
Right. So with that caveat in mind, I'm really happy with this.
Oh, okay. I was going to say I want a little tiny bit more acid blend. It seems like 3/4 of a teaspoon is like my go-to for a lot of things lately. So I'm just going to do another like half of a half. So that's a quarter. So that makes 3/4. Because too much acid will make it taste almost sour.
Yeah, we don't want that.
I don't want that. I want the brightness of it, because it seemed to really manipulate the cinnamon flavor just a little bit.
We want the punchiness, the aggressiveness of the cinnamon.
Right.
And adding some acid to that should help push it forward a little bit, give it a little boost.
Now, something else that we haven't even talked about is different kinds of cinnamon would add different kinds of punchiness of the cinnamon.
Yeah.
I think we used 2 different kinds here.
I think
we
we
used
did.
a Ceylon and we used probably a Cassia, which isn't a true cinnamon. I believe that's what ours were.
But it's my understanding that the cassia is more hot.
Right. So
We
if
were
we
looking
want
for
the
hot.
red hots style cinnamon,
Yeah.
that's what we got the last time around was the Cassia style cinnamon, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
And that's why it changed drastically in that week.
That and the
Mm-hmm.
heat and the upped ABV, I think, helped as well.
That's much better. It's amazing. You know, once you get really fine-tuned into a brew, a quarter of a teaspoon of acid blend actually changed it just enough to make that cinnamon a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah.
But it's still got a good sweetness level to it. It still tastes nice, but you know it's a mead, not Fireball whiskey. That
right.
said, this mixed with Fireball whiskey would be amazing. And I may have to do that.
Let's go get our measurement equipment
Yeah.
so that way we can tell you how much our sweetness level is.
Exactly. Okay, so the reason we take this reading is just for you, for the people. It's to tell you and us what our sweetness level was at the end so that we can mark it on the bottle. But it also gives you a guide that if you know you've liked things the way we liked them before, you can sweeten to that level yourself and have a rough estimation of what we got.
Now remember, this gravity reading is just reflective of the sweetness level that we're at. It has nothing to do with the alcohol percentage of this brew.
Yeah, the only way that our alcohol level changed is because we added a little bit of volume in honey. Not even that much, so I don't think we dropped it more than half a point overall.
I think we already took that into
Yeah.
consideration when we did our 17%.
1.030. Now, some of you are probably thinking, wow, that's ridiculously sweet. Have you ever tasted Fireball whiskey? I would bet it's even sweeter.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that low of a gravity. I could just pour this right back in because we're going to end up putting this into a fermenter. The next step is to rack this back to a fermenter. We're going to put an airlock back on it and let it sit for a while before we bottle. It did get a little clouded up by all the mixing and some of the lees got in there. I don't want that in my bottle. So we're going to leave this probably for a few months before we touch it again.
Are we going to do the final tasting on this before then, or we want to do it now, or?
Oh, you know what?
We've already, it's done.
Right. But the acid blend, I want that to have some
Want that?
time to
All right.
mellow in there. So
So we're gonna rack it to a fermenter with an airlock and everything, and then we're gonna let it set a week, and then we'll be back for its final tasting.
all right, so it's been another week on the Fireball Mead, and it is time for us to taste this and give it a judgment. It does not look like it's going to be a perfectly clear brew, and I'm all right with that. It's got a little bit of a haze, but honestly, it's got a really nice color.
So speaking of the clarity or lack thereof, it's really interesting that simply adding the honey and the acid blend, which I think is all that we added to this, created a cloudiness compared to
Because it was
how
nice and clear.
crystal clear it was after our heat treatment for the cinnamon
Yeah, the heat thing was
extraction.
weird. I don't know why that cleared it.
Okay.
But here's the other thing. This could sit for months before we bottle it, and it may actually clear out again.
Yeah. Either way, we are not overly concerned about it.
No, I can still, like in the glass, I can still see through it. I can see details.
It's a lovely color. It's kind of a reddish
Looks like apple juice.
golden. So you get the typical mead color with a little bit of that red in there, which makes you think, oh yeah, this has got cinnamon in it.
Smell that.
And then if you put your nose in there, there's no doubt this has got cinnamon in it.
Cinnamon. Yeah, it smells amazing. It really does.
But it has a complexity beyond just cinnamon, which
Yeah, the
I'm
ethanol
finding
is
really
actually starting to
great.
come through.
And did we put like apple or something in this? Because
Yes.
I think that was a good call. Apple and ginger.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, there's 1 apple cut into 8ths, just cut up, and ginger, 2 teaspoons of ginger.
Yeah.
They will heighten that cinnamon flavor and smell, and you can smell the apple.
Yeah.
It's kind of shocking that we didn't put that much in, and it
Nope,
was only a
but-
primary.
You smell apple, and I wonder if it's the sweetness of the honey plus the cinnamon makes your mind go
Think of
to
apples.
apple.
Yeah,
Spiced
that's,
apples,
that's where I got the
right?
idea for the apple. Also, we fortified this with Everclear, so this is like 17-ish percent. So it won't re-ferment.
I'm excited to go in.
Yeah, let's do it. That is a spectacular cinnamon mead. Oh my God.
That is lovely.
Okay, so what I'm getting on it, I get the tang of the apple. And maybe it's the ginger working with it.
Yeah.
The sweetness that we added, we only brought it to 1.030. Now I say only because this does not taste super sickly sweet. Like
No, but
Fireball whiskey tastes way sweeter than
it
this.
kind of gives the textural element that you get
Yes.
from backsweetening with honey, which I'm really appreciating
Mm-hmm.
because the textural element of Fireball is kind of watery.
Yeah. And it's just kind of cloying almost. It's a little too sweet. But this has just enough sweetness to bring forth those flavors without it being harsh. It doesn't taste harsh at all. It's nice and smooth. But the acidity of it is spot on. It's got a sharp flavor, but it's not like razor blade sharp. It's just
Right.
sharp. It's got enough to be bright in the mouth without overdoing it. It doesn't burn you.
And then the tannic aspect plus what cinnamon naturally does to your mouth really gives that tactile feeling on your tongue. It's really interesting because I'm getting like the tactile feeling of the honey. It seems like more on the edges of my tongue.
Yeah, I kind of get that too.
And then the tactile afterwards of the tannins and the cinnamon kind of on the top of my tongue.
Now, this is just so interesting to me because it's a very, very simple mead when you think about it. It was just honey, 71B, an apple, ginger, and water. Then we added more cinnamon sticks. Well, we added cinnamon sticks. Everclear, more cinnamon sticks. And then
Honey.
honey and
acid.
acid blend. Now, the acid blend could have been lemon juice if we really wanted to.
Yeah.
It could have been citric acid. It could have been any kind of thing that you have for an acidic element. We used very little additives in this, and that is amazing to me because this sucker went dry, just about 1.004. That's as close to dry as you're going to get. And
Yeah.
then we fortified it so we didn't even need to pasteurize. That
Right.
It's a really interesting way to do things, and that's one thing, we say it all the time, we like to show different ways of doing things. Is this the only way to achieve a result like this?
No.
Hell no. There's a million ways to do this. This is just how we did it for this recipe. So if you want to recreate this, you need to do it the way we did. If you do any other methods or any other differences, it's probably going to be a slightly different product. I didn't say better, I didn't say worse. I just said
different.
slightly different. Every little change does make a difference.
Yeah. I am pleasantly surprised with the result of this.
Yeah.
I thought this was an unattainable goal and we were stretching the limits of our capabilities.
Lots of cinnamon. Lots of cinnamon. Now, if I were to do this again, I would break the cinnamon the first time. The first big boy cinnamons
Oh,
we
sure,
found, I would
yeah.
break those up too.
Yeah.
That would give a lot more pronounced cinnamon flavor. And if anybody's worried about off flavors or weirdness from the heat that it got, nothing. There's no off flavors. There's no weirdness.
No,
It
this
smells wonderful. This smells aged. It tastes aged.
smells and tastes exactly what we put in it.
Mm-hmm.
There is no deviation from those things. And
That is so good.
it is really good. I'm trying hard not to drink all of mine because I actually want to compare it. We still have some.
We have ways of making this work.
All right. But first we have to judge this.
Yep. I just need more.
You need more for science?
Do you need more?
Sure. Twist my leg, arm, twist any body part. I don't care.
Do you want more than that?
Nah, that's good.
You want to taste it side by side. I can tell you right now, it doesn't taste anything like it.
I know, but I want to
Give the comparison.
compare
That's
and
fair.
contrast
That's fair.
for science. This is a very enjoyable beverage.
I am getting, okay, now that I'm tasting it a little bit more, getting a little bit of the youngness on it. There's a slight bitter note towards the back of the throat. Not unusual for meads for me, but it's a little more pronounced on this one.
I am not getting it at all.
It's not really derailing me from liking this. Don't get me wrong. It's just, it's there. I like to, full disclosure, tell you everything.
Now the bitter note is something that Brian is more sensitive to than I am.
Yeah.
So it simply might be that. So if you tend to
That's how I can tell a mead from a wine.
find bitter notes at the end of fermented honey beverages, then you might be more in the Brian camp.
Yeah.
If you barely notice it at all, then you're in my camp. So welcome.
The honey note actually is pretty pervasive. It comes from front to back. It's kind of impressive. Usually you get honey at one point in the travel, not the whole way through. And it's different pieces of the honey notes too. Like
Sometimes
I'm getting
it's a
more
flavor, sometimes it's a texture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm getting more of the, like, how honey can be a little acidic. I'm getting more of that in this particular brew. And I think that's great, actually.
Yeah.
That works really, really well with this. Just trying to explain the different ways that honey works.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, judgment.
All right. So right now you should be seeing our scorecard on your screen. It goes 1 through 10 according to the thing, but it's actually 0 through 11 because, some things just suck and some things are just that kind of amazing. This does not suck.
It does not.
Nope, not at all. Do you have a number?
Kinda.
I have a number. I'm ready with a number.
All right.
I'm going off of pure enjoyment. Would I drink this? Do I like it? How do I feel about it? Not knowing anything about it other than it's a cinnamon mead, fireball mead, clone, whatever you want, however you want to say it. All right, are you ready? Mm-hmm. 1, 2, 3, 9. I couldn't go 10 simply because of that little bit of a pronounced bitter note, but I gave it a 9. I think that's the highest score I've given in a while.
I was waffling between a 9 and 9.5, so that should tell you something right there. I will have no problem drinking this.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I didn't think you were going to be the one to like this.
No, I gave it a 9 the same as you, so.
So you wanted to taste this next to something, didn't you?
I did. Let's get out our inspiration beverage.
Yep.
Should I rinse my glass so we have a clean
Yeah,
glass?
you probably want to rinse a glass.
Okay.
All right, so I needed to get another sample. Oh, no.
Oh, no. So Bry's glass has our Fireball Mead. I'm going to attempt to pour some.
That's good. That's good. That's good. That is whiskey. We have a couple of things we got to do today. Now, first, dramatically different clarity level.
Yeah, but very similar hue.
Yeah, they're not far off in color. They're actually quite similar. It's closer than I thought, but not exact. And I think this type of cinnamon that you use is going to make all the difference here. We use 2 different types of cinnamon. Which ones exactly, I'm not sure. I know one of them was a Ceylon.
All right, so the Fireball whiskey, I'm getting more of that hot cinnamon on the aroma, where I'm getting
Sweet cinnamon.
sweet cinnamon.
That's why I say we used a lot of Ceylon.
Our Fireball Mead replicant.
They might have used a lot of cassia,
Yeah,
which is
I'm thinking they did.
the hot type of cinnamon.
I believe this is brewed stateside.
Who knows?
It says it's re-imported by Sazerac in New Orleans, but
Yeah.
where is it brewed?
Don't know.
Where do you
They're not going to tell you.
brew things?
Okay. So, yeah. Ladies first.
I'm gonna do ours first, followed by the original Fireball, and then I'll swap.
Very different in the mouth.
They're very different texturally,
Yeah.
other than the lingering heat.
Now, I have learned that there is the something glycinate in Fireball whiskey,
Okay.
making it artificially thick and adds to the flavors.
Okay.
They probably had glycerin too.
Right. Other than the mouthfeel and the lingering candy-like cinnamon hotness in the Fireball whiskey.
There's a similarity.
There is a similarity.
But I
Surprisingly,
think the whiskey tastes more medicinal. It tastes more fake.
yeah.
And I'm not trashing it because I actually like Fireball. We tried it on the show, the tasting room, a few weeks back, and I actually like it. I don't drink it every day, but I like it. On ice, it's actually kind of cool. This is very interesting, though, when you taste them back to back like that. The similarities come forward. That cinnamony flavor, a sweetness there. The mouthfeel is fairly close on
Did
both.
you do it this way?
I'm not gonna. I'm not going to bother.
Oh.
I already know what I'm going to do.
So there is this really interesting thing when you taste two things and you taste them in one direction and then you swap the directions.
Yeah.
You get different flavor notes enhanced or diminished in the second beverage based on what was going on in the first beverage.
To me, they tasted different enough that I wasn't going to.
So when I started, I did our Fireball Mead first and then the Fireball Whiskey second. And so the flavor profile was rather similar in that comparison.
Mm-hmm.
It was more the textural elements that were shockingly different. And then the lingering after effect of the Fireball Whiskey. Then when I swapped and did the Fireball Whiskey first, followed by our Fireball Mead, I think the lasting effect of the Fireball Whiskey was kind of knocking out some of the flavors that I was getting in our Fireball Mead. And so our Fireball Mead was bringing forth what is missing in the Fireball Whiskey, and that's the acidity.
And complexity.
So I was getting a lot more of the acid notes, almost like a sour lemon kind of thing going on that alone you don't get just drinking the Fireball Mead.
What I noticed is the Fireball Whiskey became almost unpleasant next to Fireball Mead, which is interesting because normally I can just drink that neat. But next to the mead, it was almost
definitely
unpleasant. Give that a smell.
The cloyy.
Yeah, it was a little too much.
Syrupy almost. It was just.
I mixed them roughly half and half, and the smell is way more complex, way more interesting than either of them alone.
I don't know. I think the smell of ours by itself is pretty nice too.
Well, now you have the Red Hot's candy smell in with what we had too. So it's different.
This is weird because normally when we compare two things and add them together, it creates this beautiful new thing.
This time it didn't.
This time it didn't. This time
They're almost fighting each other.
Yeah, this time I think I like our Fireball Mead.
I like our Fireball Mead better than I like Fireball Whiskey.
It's okay. Brian still loves you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I gave it a 9.
Sure.
But the mixture, it didn't help either one.
No, it
doesn't.
didn't.
It's not better than Fireball Whiskey, and it's certainly not better than Fireball Mead. It's kind of the worst parts of both.
Yeah.
Like, it's too medicinal and too acidic at the same time.
Yep.
So, if you do this, don't try to make a cocktail. just don't. I'm gonna get this down, but eventually. But anyway, make this. This actually came out pretty fantastic. Double 9s is awesome. And as always, guys, thanks so much for watching and have a great day.
Bye-bye.